along to the latest episode of the Racing News 365 podcast, looking back on last weekend's race in Monaco, but also looking ahead to the final part of the European triple header this weekend in Barcelona. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and I'm delighted to be joined, as always, by the one, the only 2023 Young Journalist of the Year, Sam. Absolutely no. Oh, he's doing peace. Coop. Always, and the man, the myth, the legend in a coffee shop. That is lead editor Ian Parks. Ian, I'm going to throw it to you first because it's been a little while since we've done a podcast with you having a very interesting background. Obviously, last week was with Marcin in Imola. A bit different this week. Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, this is the dream team back together, isn't it? But Mr. Coop has one hell of a lot to live up to because 2 weeks ago, we had Marzano. He was excellent. Last week, you're going to have to forgive me. You've been hearing background noises for, I am in a coffee shop, I'll get snapped said. Last week, we had Marcin Bukowski, who was absolutely superb.
Amazing.
A lot of great comments underneath that video. So I agree with me. So now, Mr. Coop's back in the hot seat. Never been a team principal, unlike Otmar and Marcia, but nevertheless, let's have a peach outside. Oh, let's rock with that. And yes, I'm in a coffee shop. Hold on, Sam. I'm in a coffee shop. I've not long got back from back from Marseille. It's the airport I flew out of, having covered the Monaco Grand Prix. Landed at Stansted Airport. Way too packed, way too noisy. So I thought I'd go to be nearby a coffee shop just outside Stansted. If you know it, folks, ever fly out of there, you'll know which one. Cool.
To be fair to Alpine, or, well, their situation and me, they could do with a new team principal at the moment. So it's not completely out of the realms of possibility. I'll brush up on my CV and send it Enstone's way.
Right, okay, let's get on with this because we could talk about coffee shops and Sam becoming a team principal for the next 45 minutes quite easily. But we've got to, of course, start with something we've not done for a little while and a fun question to get things going. And, of course, something which did happen in Monaco was Liam Lawson finally scored some points this season. He has now started 19 Grand Prix. But my question to both of you is, in those 19 Grand Prix, in how many races has Liam finished in the points? Ooh. How many races? You got an answer? Okay. Let's see if Sam... Where are you going? You're going to go 6. Sam, what are you going for?
Is it just races or we're including sprints?
Just Grand Prix, just races, not sprints.
Just Grand Prix.
Just races.
I'm going to say 5.
Well, very interestingly, you're both, and I was surprised by this, wrong. He's actually only finished in the top 10 on 4 occasions: in the 2023 Singapore Grand Prix, in the 2024 US Grand Prix, 2024 Sao Paulo Grand Prix, and of course last weekend in Monaco. That caught me by surprise. Right, shall we? I'm going to change things up because instead of getting straight in with our biggest takeaway, which we will do in a few moments, I think we need to start with something else because it wasn't just any ordinary Monaco Grand Prix. It was, in fact, the first ever time of seeing the mandatory 2-stop rule. The first question to both of you, and I'll also offer my opinion in a second, was it a success or was it a failure? Sam, you can go first.
It wasn't a success. It wasn't a success. It was a failure in my book. It didn't work. But what I will say is F1 were right to try something. It's commendable they tried something. And I think they should also try and tweak it for next year and see what they can do to basically ensure that the regulations, and sorry if you're hearing any noise, my cat has just jumped on my lap and is now nuzzling my microphone. But there are tweaks they can make, like set pit stop windows, as Martin Brundle was advocating, and a few people have advocated over the weekend, or potentially adding a maximum lap time delta, as Toto Wolff suggested after the race as well. So there are things they can try, and I don't think you can fully judge something just specifically from one example. You need to run it back because there are circumstances involved with each race. So it could actually work in a more safety car and red flag affected or wet affected Monaco Grand Prix.
It is so difficult not to laugh right now. For those who are watching on YouTube, you will see that obviously Sam's cat is on his lap and you can just see the corner of the cat's tail in the corner of the screen. Anyways, Ian, what were your thoughts on the mandatory 2-stop?
I was so disappointed, Nick, because we came into it with such high hopes. There was so much talk around it. What's going to happen was a strategy. Could a team do this? Could the team do that? Could somebody pit after lap 1, pit after lap 2, go long, and then just hope and hang on? But because you cannot overtake around Monaco, which we all know is that circuit's bête noire, and it just didn't really catch fire. I'd now got to say, got its tail in the corner of my eye, and I'm being very heavily distracted for those of you just listening rather than watching. It's like, oh, blindly so. But yeah, so ultimately, overall, just a very serious disappointment. As I say, it just didn't catch fire. And yes, there was that degree of jeopardy, to use the word that Christian Horner talked about. Could there be a safety? Could there be a red flag? And it was, pretty evident what Red Bull were desperately hanging on for, that the latter, a red flag, would fly. We've seen it happen in the past. There was no guarantee it was not going to happen. There's so numerous brake crashes in Monaco Grand Prix because, as I do, drivers again, they do more tiny mistakes. They've only hit a barrier or wall, car stranded on track, that's it, red flag. Well, if there'd been one late on, of course, drivers would have followed into the pit lane, allowed to change tyres under the regulations, and Max, if it had happened while Max was in the lead, he would naturally have gone on to win the Grand Prix. It didn't happen. It didn't catch fire. It was such a disappointment. As Santa pointed out, they've got the opportunity now to assess it, see how it all played out, because obviously it's the first time trying this tweak. So now that they can see exactly what has happened, exactly how certain strategies played out, now they can go back again, refine the tweak, and apply something different for next year that might make that difference that we were really hoping.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give my views on this because I actually feel quite passionately about this because I don't think it really worked. And of course, we've heard so many of the things coming out of this. Of course, Christian Horner also used the words fundamental problem and that it's just impossible to overtake around Monaco. Some have called for track changes, whether you can turn left at Portier to the right. Of course, for those who don't know the corner names, that is the corner that then takes you into the tunnel. For me, though, I don't want to see Monaco fall off the calendar because we're going to get to a point eventually where we're just going to lose all of our historic, our proper, old school venues. I think for me, yes, of course, when you have a bad race in Monaco, people quickly say, get it off the calendar. If it were to ever leave the calendar, it would feel like, it just would feel wrong. Well, maybe that's just me being a bit of a traditionalist. I don't know. But
No, I agree.
Yeah, I just
no,
feel that. I feel that the problem is still, it's not Monaco, and it is F1. We have got cars now which are, it's not only a case of they're too big. The bigger issue in my eyes is they're actually too quick. We saw the first sub 70-second lap around Monaco. It means that start finish line DRS section is pointless because by the time a car gets close enough, you're at the first corner. And actually, these cars are approaching everywhere so quickly, it's less time to make an overtake. And I do have a theory or something that F1 could try because I'm going to get some stats up. So I'm going to go back to Formula E. A very good reason behind this, though, because Formula E was there only a few weeks ago and they posted a very well-timed tweet confirming the number of overtakes FE had in Monaco a few weeks ago. We had two races. Race 1 featured 194 overtakes. Race 2 featured 167. Yes, of course, some of those are as a result of energy saving, which will be interesting next season with F1's 2026 regs and, of course, the 50-50 split between the electrical energy and the internal combustion, because we will see drivers likely having to go slower to obviously save their battery and save energy, something that a lot of teams are actually quite concerned about how slow they might go. In my eyes, FE proves that overtaking is possible. F1's too big, it's too fast. And for me, a way to get around that would be, I think we've got to see how the 26 cars behave first, because it could be completely different. We don't quite know yet. In my eyes, we've got to obviously have a super soft tyre for qualifying because Monaco is the best qualifying of the year. Give them the softest tyre. Go on, Ian.
Hold on, how soft do you want to go? We've had the seed 6. We have the brand new soft tyre.
This is
I don't know how soft chewing gum tyres.
Well, but hear me out. It's a very interesting point. It's something I've raised because everyone's been raising things that F1 could try. In my eyes, I don't really agree with George Russell's idea of 2 qualifying sessions, one on the Saturday, one on the Sunday.
Or
Yeah.
sprinklers.
Or sprinklers on the circuit. In my eyes, let's keep, for example, the C6 tyres, but they can only be used in qualifying and in practice. They cannot be used in the race because, as we know with Monaco, it's just too much grip effectively for them in the race, and obviously it makes defending too easy. For the race, they should then have to use, obviously in lines of being safe, the 2 hardest compounds. So don't take successive tires. So for example, the C1, C2, C3, or the C4, C5, C6 we saw last weekend. For example, have the C6 for qualifying and practice, and maybe the C2 and C3 for the race, because what that will then do is getting heat into the tires will be harder. It'll make grip at a minimum. It means drivers are going to likely make mistakes, as Lando Norris made at the first corner, but it will then involve potentially an opportunity to make some overtakes. I don't want to see this mandatory pit stop malarkey, because, as we'll discuss later on, Carlos Sainz called out one team for basically manipulating the results. In fact, let's just do that now, because as we're talking about it, Racing Bulls, of course, both drivers finished in the points. Liam Lawson held up the pack remarkably, creating a 40-second buffer between himself and Isaac Hadjar up the road, allowing Isaac to produce both his pit stops, come out ahead of Liam and half the field. Isaac went on to finish in 6th. Carlos Sainz came out and said that Racing Bulls manipulated the results. It needs to be looked into. It's not a good look for the sport. Of course, Williams, once they clicked what Racing Bulls were doing, did the exact same thing themselves, obviously finished 9th and 10th. Mercedes, it was too late for them really to even try that. But Ian, what do you think? Is it fair what Racing Bulls did? Do you want to be seeing that in racing?
Is it fair? Well, there's nothing in the regulations to stop them from doing it. That's the bottom line. But just all about the strategists within every single team sitting down and working out what the opportunities with the options might be. With Ida and Liam so close together on the grid, and commendable job to both drivers, by the way, for making the top 10 in the first. That's the first trick around lawn qualifying. You've got to nail that. They nailed it. Fair play to them. They got those positions, points from positions. Naturally, they then wanted to do everything they possibly could to hand on to those front scoring positions. And they manipulated the strategy book in that respect. It wasn't great. I agree. It didn't look good. This year, now, is why we're discussing it. As I say, people go away. They can see what happened. They like us. They're going to see exactly the same thing. It wasn't a good score. But as I say, there's nothing to stop them from doing around this is way to go away. Of how, right, what you do now, to tweak the 2-step rule, you've got to keep that. You can't back to 1 stop to kill the Grand Prix again entirely. What can we do now to ensure that the 2-stop becomes more of a success? We don't find it practicals, but we're seeing on it during some days ago. I think fair play to Red Bull. They, as I say, manipulated the strategy. They got away with it. They got both drivers at the points. Liam Lawson, 4th on scoring position of his F1 career, as we discovered earlier. But that's ended his drought for this season. So, as I said, I'm going to give all credit to the Racing Bulls chief strategists and people around them, because they got it right.
There's a few things to unpack here, really, isn't there? I mean, first of all, Monaco will be on the calendar until 2031, so we have time to experiment. We have time to play around with these various kind of, guises of the race. But ultimately, I mean, James Vowles himself said this isn't how we want to go racing, when Williams were then kind of pushed into doing what Racing Bulls had done. And as we know, he sent Toto Wolff a text during the race to apologise for employing those tactics himself, which is a remarkable gesture from him. And Toto Wolff completely understood. He said, I get it. Like, you've got to do what you've got to do. It's 2 points paying positions on the line. But ultimately, I feel that this is a legacy from the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix last year and Kevin Magnussen and the tactics that Haas used at that point. And we saw it a little bit in Monaco last year with Fernando Alonso deliberately going slowly. So I'm not sure that, I think it's almost kind of like the cork's out of the bottle. And now that teams know they can do that, because if it was a 1-stop race, Liam Lawson still would have done exactly what he did to ensure Isaac Hadjar had time to make his 1 pit stop. So the 2-stop in this specific issue, I don't think is a problem. It's a problem with the wider regulation. I think it's totally fair what Racing Bulls did, because as Ian points out, there's nothing in the regulations that says you can't. But I think we all would agree it's kind of against the spirit of the regulations. And that's where F1 and the FIA need to tighten these things up. But again, this is why you take these steps into the unknown, to kind of then flesh out, actually, how does this work? What are the pitfalls here? And then move on and adapt from there. So, yeah, I mean, fair play to Racing Bulls. They played an absolute blinder. And again, as Ian pointed out, 9/10 of the law there was the brilliant job that Isaac and Liam did on Saturday.
I feel like we could probably discuss this 2-stop, pit stop, mandatory Monaco madness for the next 40 odd minutes, but we do have a lot more to discuss. We'll pause that part there. And of course, for those who are watching this podcast on YouTube, let us know your thoughts in the comments below on the mandatory 2-stop rule. Did you like it? What changes do you think could be made, or does Monaco just need to come off the calendar? I will make a very quick announcement, and that's for this weekend.
Get the poll up, Nick.
Of course, there is a poll over at Racing News 365 of what you think should happen with Monaco. So if you'd like to vote in that, then head over to the website. I will very quickly pause this podcast to make a quick announcement in that for this weekend's Spanish Grand Prix, Racing News 365 are doing a giveaway. If you would like to win a scale model helmet, something a bit different, of your favourite driver, all you've got to do to be in with a chance of winning is be subscribed to the Racing News 365 channel by Sunday, because on Monday, we will announce the winner. If you're already subscribed to the channel, guess what? You're already entered into the giveaway. Congratulations, best of luck to everyone. And well, let me know in the comments which helmet you would like to win. We've also got to very quickly do our biggest takeaways. Now, I'll be honest, mine was that F1's the problem, not Monaco, so I won't bother talking about mine because I've already rambled on about it for about 4 or 5 minutes. Do either of you have a biggest takeaway, which isn't the 2-stop rule? Either of you? Sam?
I have one, and
Go on then.
This isn't really to kind of turn the screw at you, Nick, but I remember earlier in the year you were quite passionate that Lando Norris was totally out of this, that he wasn't going to be a factor in the title race.
Still believe it.
And but I think,
do you honestly say that?
I did. After I think it was after Jeddah. I think it was after his crash in Q3 in Saudi Arabia. But I stand by it. You know, man of my word. You've got to stand by it now. I look silly otherwise.
To be fair, my first takeaway is that I think I'm going to have to concede on my prediction that George Russell will win the title this season. I think he's out of it now. I think he's too far back. But again, last year, things changed drastically, so who knows? But I'm not sure that's realistic. Obviously, I stand by it in hope. But we'll have to see. But no, I think Lando Norris is absolutely... He's turned the tide he needed.
You're talking about a miracle here, and that one is not going to happen. So fair play after a third of the season of Great Grand Prix, you earning up the same. George is not going to win it. Yeah.
But on a more serious note, Lando Norris had the weekend he needed. And it was something that I wrote about kind of after... things started to turn against him. There's qualifying mistakes. He was kind of around the Bahrain Jeddah kind of tilt. And that turnaround came a little bit later than I kind of was saying that he needed it. But as we can see, Oscar having a weekend that he had has closed that gap to 3 points. So it is so close. And we are starting to see Oscar be more human. The first corner at Imola, that was a glaring oversight from him. And again, he had a messy weekend here. And we know that Oscar has never been a particularly good driver comparatively over one lap, piecing it all together. And that is the key in Monaco. So it kind of an extension of that logic. It's not surprising that he maybe wasn't on the paces of Lando around the Principality, but those little mistakes that we saw creeping into his racecraft, I was going to say game, but that's almost more of a football kind of expression. But what we're seeing shows that there is pressure that can get to him, and that we are so far from done with this title race. And again, you never count out Max Verstappen. Even if you count out George Russell, you certainly don't with Max Verstappen. And the McLaren guys are aware of it. The opportunity for somehow Max to sneak in the door and take the title. So yeah, it's basically completely wide open.
Ian, do you have a biggest takeaway that's not anything to do with the 2-stop rule?
It's a really tough one, isn't it? Because the 2-stop rule was the nuts and bolts of the weekend, and then the actual Grand Prix itself, Lando Norris came away as the main talking point because, as Sam have rightly pointed out, he delivered a weekend, and Lando's admitted it himself, where he felt back on it. He's gone to the runner bar 3 now, effectively 6. Since he's a season winner in Australia, the runner bar 3 where he struggled with his own difficulties inside his head, trying to get things right there, struggled with the car, and he delivered pretty much a near flawless weekend. VAR was almost the biggest of all Mighty's cock-ups at the first corner where he had that huge lock-up. And as I said in the update post Grand Prix on Sunday, another few centimeters longer with that lock-up, and that could have been an absolute disaster. Just managed to save it and turn it. Otherwise, that Grand Prix could have been completely different. But they're up to the grace of God. He saved it and nailed it. Thereof. In terms of after that, we've not got that much, really, in terms of major talking point. Yeah, Liam Lawson sorted his spur point.
Yeah.
We've now turned up on. This weekend will certainly have done something for his confidence, even though every time he was asked about it on Saturday and Sunday, he was like, praying about, or certainly not really biting on the question. Isaac Hadja, once again, really busted again. Yes, made mistakes, but bounced back from them superbly. He's on a cracking rush for. And you can bet your bottom dollar, the Red Bull are going to be looking at him and the performances he is delivering and thinking, it's not something, which is, we consider his form in F2 last year. Yes, he was runner-up and he pushed Gabriel Bortoleto right to the wire. But nevertheless, there were aspects of his performance, aspects of his character as well, that came to light. You thought, maybe this leap to Formula One is a bit too much for him too soon. But he's getting good. This guy was going to be a good season under his belt in racing halls. And as we touched on already, could there be yet another driver change out of this season going into 2026? Because Yuki Tsunoda's contracted up at the end of this year. Used to say either Tedrick will not be Max Verstappen's teammate in 2026.
Interesting. I mean, who says he won't be his teammate before the end of this year, let alone by 2026? Who knows what's going to happen? Cough up, Ian. For those who are watching on YouTube, Ian is in a coffee shop having a horrible little moment, it seems. Are you okay? Are you good? Okay, he's good. He's good. Okay, but good thing, right? Okay,
well, the mic up as well, knowing that the video editors are going to edit this, we'll cut it. So,
well, okay, well, my bad for mentioning it. Well, it's people like to know. People like to know what's going on. We've mentioned Sam's cat. We've mentioned your cough. But what it's interesting is that you pointed out that not a lot happened. Despite that, let's do our Monaco predictions and a look back. Despite not a lot happening, it was a major week in the Racing News 365 podcast predictions leaderboard, because one of us, and of course it was Marcin Budkowski, the former Alpine executive director representing the fans, one of us 4 got the joint lowest score of the season so far, scoring just 1 point in Monaco was me. It was me. I scored just 1 point because I said Oscar Piastri would finish second. Of course, he finished third. I was 1 position out. I got a point. Sam, you came in third in Monaco because you got 5 points for Norris and Verstappen not being in the right order. You said Verstappen third. He finished fourth. You said Lando second. He obviously won. Ferrari, believe it or not, got the fastest pit stop yet again. Another 2-second pit stop. So, of course, Sam, you got 3 points for that. Ian, you're celebrating because you got 3 points for that, as did Marcin. But Ian, you actually walked away with 7 points because, as well as saying that Ferrari would get the fastest pit stop, you also said Norris would finish second, but you also said that Carlos Sainz would finish in 10th. Guess who finished 10th? Very lucky there. Marcin did very well for fans.
That's the point of that Sainz.
It's the
prediction.
point.
It's one of those that because as I say, we're getting, we obviously get boxed in with who's going to
Yeah,
qualify on pole, who's going to be the top three. It's how we introduce the 10th place position to add that
absolutely.
jeopardy that the Monaco
Yeah.
Grand Prix should have delivered, but never quite did. But
I'm
anyway,
sticking with Yuki Tsunoda. Every round, I'm going Yuki.
Well,
It's
Marcin, if we look at individual winners, Marcin actually got the biggest score. Marcin got 8 points for saying Oscar and Leclerc in the wrong order. He obviously said Ferrari fastest pit stop. He also said Norris fastest lap, so he picked up 3 points for that. And the reason I said it's a major change or a major weekend is that we have a new leader. Ian has taken the lead and is now on 50 points. I'm in second on 48. I'd love to know what the people in the Cafe Nero you're in are looking at right now. They see you celebrating in the corner.
pretty empty now, so I'm all right.
The fans are on 44. Sam is in last on 40. So there's only 10 points now between the four of us. It's closing up. I do not like the 10th place rule. I think it is a fundamental problem with our system. Anyways, moving
all right,
on
Christian.
very,
I'll drop
very
Martin a
swiftly.
message after this. I'll drop Martin a message after this and let him know that he was the top scorer from the weekend.
There's-
He'll
I
be
mean-
highly delighted.
Please do.
There's a reason why he was a team principal, right? He knows his
Right,
stuff.
He clearly does. Let's crack on because there are some things obviously to discuss, despite not too much really happening in Monaco. And Ian, I'll come to you on this point because we've discussed a little bit Lando and Oscar, but it's so fascinating, isn't it, that we've spoken so many times this season about them being such different characters, yet they almost did, at least from my perspective, it felt like a little bit of a flip reversal in Monaco, and that Lando was kind of not self-critical, very much kind of just minding his own business, getting on with things, whereas Oscar actually was pretty critical of some of the mistakes he was making. He said it was a really messy weekend from his part. This is now massive, isn't it, going into Spain, because obviously the final part of this European triple header, which means that with only 3 points in that lead for Oscar, there's a good chance if Lando beats Oscar, we're going to go into Canada in what is now 3 weeks' time with a new championship leader.
Yeah, look, for all of Oscar's cool, calm, composed nature, which we know he possesses, got to remember that this is still only his third season in Formula
know.
One.
Crazy.
He's not a baby in that respect, but nevertheless, he's still learning. He's still on the job, and he was never going to have the perfect season. Whilst he came superbly to get himself into this position, and he's taken advantage, most definitely, of the difficulties that Lando has endured, as mentioned, both the car within himself. There was always going to be little blips, as I say, track that maybe doesn't suit him for just a session that doesn't go red white, and then that has that little knock-on impact. I saw that on occasion last season where couldn't quite get it right from the start of the weekend, and he was really behind the curve to some degree, and he was having to play catch-up before it ultimately came good on Sunday, but by then it was a little bit too late. This time around, it's one of those weekends where he never quite nailed it from the start, and got to remember as well, Monaco is out right in the eye of the meter. It's so precise. You've got to be so precise. Millimeter per piece of your car. I love some of the graphics that we saw in TV over the weekend. And not 1 centimeter away from this barrier, not 0.5 centimeters away from that wall, etc. I thought that was pretty cool. So if it just underlined though for me those graphics as to how precise you have had to be around Monaco. And for Oscar, it was one of those that didn't quite come together for him. So yes, I'm still expecting that over the remaining 16 Grand Prix, he's going to have a little blip here and there. But for the most part, he should draw on all the good points that he's had over the previous few Grand Prix. Brush this one, yes, of course, to look back and reflect, but he'll brush this one off. And I'd no doubt that around Barcelona, a track that all the drivers know like the back of their hand, it's going to be a completely different weekend for.
And Sam, I'll come to you on a slightly different angle because obviously, as you very kindly pointed out, I did say a few races ago that I don't think Lando will win the title this season. But obviously, the crucial thing for Lando this season is that we've seen in every single venue this season, he's had the pace to arguably win all of them, as has Oscar in all fairness as well. The thing with Lando is that he hasn't shown, particularly in qualifying this year, that consistency across the board. It's been those small errors which have let him down. Whilst he's obviously now going to be on a massive high coming out of Monaco, is it fair to say that there's actually going to be some pressure on him going into Spain to show that he can string together back-to-back really strong weekends?
There will be pressure on him because it's a level of, are you really back? Have you turned that corner with this car? Evidence so far suggests he has, because we're more difficult than to do that than at Monaco. And Liam Lawson was talking about how he couldn't believe how much lap time you could find in just that little extra, that little bit more close to the wall. And he found, he was talking about how he was, a couple of seconds off in practice, and he pushed it a little bit more, and all of a sudden he was on the pace, and he had a really good weekend. So there will be pressure on Lando to build on what he has established in Monaco, but I also think the overarching take home from him will actually be taking pressure off him. I think he would have been under more pressure than he will be had he not had the strong weekend in Monaco. So I think there's a net gain if we're talking about pressure on Lando, if that kind of makes any sense. So I think he has the opportunity now to kind of go to a more conventional track, apply those learnings that he took from Monaco, and really get himself back into that swing of things, because you're absolutely right that he has shown that pace. It's just been that consistency. It's been finding that feeling, especially in the front axle, that he struggled with. Andrea Stella has talked about that this is really kind of where they feel the MCL 39 is not as responsive as the predecessor, the 38. And that is a bigger problem for Lando than it is for Oscar, evidently. So again, if they can kind of acquiesce with that and kind of remedy that, then Lando in theory can push on. So yeah, I think he's in a good position. I think he'll be feeling good. Also knowing that a victory will, no matter what Oscar does, return him to the top of the standings heading into Canada. Yeah, he's well poised in that sense.
A key for Lando quite naturally now. So it's the one thing that's been lacking throughout this so far is that consistency. Other than in the level, so the things that got inside his head, he took things with it, very upsetting. So if he can now get on the run of consistency, then I think he's going to be making you eating the words stick, in all honesty, because
more than happy for it. More than happy. Prove me wrong. It's go for it, Lando, and I will take my hat off and say, well done, sir. You deserve it, because fair play. Something I thought was really interesting coming out of Monaco, or should I say, listening to the post-race media sessions, and it was one that you covered in from obviously Max Verstappen, in that apart from him joking about the 2-stop mandatory rule and saying maybe next year we could do 4 stops, and that even if he'd done 4 stops on a Sunday, he still would have finished in 4th. What I thought was really interesting, though, is him talking about his approach to the championship this season, and that he's, in his words, he's taking it race by race. It almost feels like he's entering each Grand Prix now this year before even stepping into the car, recognizing if it's going to be a good or bad venue for Red Bull. We all kind of knew going into Monaco that the load speed circuits, the curbs, some of the camber wasn't going to work in their favor, as it hasn't done for the last couple of years, with the exception of 2023. But it is fascinating, isn't it, that Max has taken, it does feel, compared to the past, a really different approach this season to this title fight against the McLarens.
in fairness, Nick, driver doesn't take that kind of approach. It's always race by race. Max, in my book, it really differ from previous season for that kind of comment. In this pace, I get your point, that it is perhaps more pertinent this season than it might have been in previous one because of the fluctuations with that car as to, is it going to be good at this track? Is it going to be good at that track? Now, we know, and it had been mentioned, given the nature of it's so Catalunya, that Red Bull out of Max in particular should be really strong. So you're going to say it now, and no, my predictions are growing at the end of the shows with regard to the Spanish Grand Prix, just to give you some idea. And I'm fully expecting another performance up for Max and Red Bull this weekend, simply because the nature of that circuit should lend itself to him extracting every ounce of performance from that car. Not that he didn't do it in Monaco first, but extracting every ounce of good performance from that car because it should really work well around us.
And of course, Sam, we've got to discuss it. There is, of course, the new TD this weekend in Barcelona. We're going to see the rules around the amount of flex in the front wing reduced. If you're Mercedes, Ferrari, or Red Bull, you're probably hoping McLaren are going to be impacted because actually that's been the big speculation, isn't it? From a lot of the teams and pointing the finger at McLaren saying, there's something not right with their car. McLaren, when you ask them, have brushed it off on every occasion, always saying, no, there's nothing wrong with our car. And to their credit, it has passed every single FIA check, and there's been a few this year. So what do you think is going to happen in Barcelona this weekend? I know it's probably impossible to predict, but I'll put the question on you.
It is very difficult to predict, and there's a certain element of how long is a piece of string when it comes to answering this question. It's just so difficult to know a few days out from Barcelona what the actual impact will be, and will it have any substantive impact on the pecking order, in addition to will it close up the gaps? Probably will, more in the midfield where it's closer. But as for McLaren, it's natural that the leading teams are going to be looking at them and hoping that it's McLaren who are impacted the most because they're the leaders. And it's also natural for McLaren to play down any kind of anticipation because they don't want to show insecurity or vulnerability or weakness that can then be latched onto. And that's the kind of thing where if they do and there is an impact, you're going to see more and more teams like Red Bull going, well, this approach of asking the questions, triggering these technical directives, what more can we find with this McLaren? We've already seen it so far this year when it comes to their brake and tyre cooling measures that they might have in place. So it becomes this cycle where those teams are kind of constantly going to be looking for those little things and going, well, they're the quickest car. They might have other things, other systems on that car that we could exploit by just asking the questions to the FIA. In McLaren's defense, we have seen these situations in the past not have any material difference for McLaren. So what we're looking at for Barcelona is that flex, which is currently allowed at 15 millimeters in the front wing, being reduced to 10. So it's a slight difference, but a significant one nonetheless. We saw a similar thing last year with the rear wings, where McLaren were judged to be the kind of the team with who'd utilised that mini DRS flap the most. They got rid of that because of the kind of the noise around it partly, and it didn't make a huge impact on the order. The pre-Imola technical directives, we're still yet to really see if they're going to impact McLaren in the way that some people are starting to suggest they were, or that Imola maybe suggested it did in terms of Red Bull obviously making a step. But that could just be Red Bull improving. That might not have any relation to McLaren whatsoever, and that's certainly what McLaren said. So you have this really intriguing narrative coming into the Spanish Grand Prix, and it's very, very difficult to see how it will play out. The status quo is that it won't have a huge impact. And that's certainly what McLaren is saying. But again, we don't know how much teams have already baked this in. They were given these rounds by the FIA from the start of the season because they didn't want to make a drastic change that then meant whatever developments over this winter were then worthless and wasted money for the teams. So they had this period of time that they could make changes. We don't know how much teams have done because you only have to declare certain things to the FIA if they're visible changes. We know Mercedes made changes with their front wing that was done with the Spanish Grand Prix in mind. So again, we could already have all of that flux with the pecking order baked into the current shape of things.
And actually, it's no different to what we've seen in the past when Red Bull were dominating, when Mercedes were dominating. The rivals are always trying to make something happen to slow down the lead team, because ultimately, the thing that none of the teams want this year is McLaren to have this consistent advantage. Ian, anything to add on this point before predictions time?
The only thing I'd say on it is that Frank Vasseur, the Ferrari team principal, has said more than once that he feels it's going to be a gauge. I'm surprised at that. What does he know that others don't? Because you ask the majority of the other team principals, who ask the drivers as to what they know about it behind the scenes in speaking to their teams, because naturally going to be asking the question. And pretty much everybody else to learn is not expecting too much to happen. There might be a little bit of change, particularly in the midfield. like Hans pointed out, Mercedes, we already know, has already gone ahead and made it stretch. It's illegal front wing, or legal as definitively going to be in Spanish Grand Prix, already on the go. At least it did for the Imola Grand Prix, recently. So it's already ahead of the curve. Our other team's going to be simply playing catch up in the Spanish Grand Prix. Would that be the first sight of front wing for that particular Grand Prix? Not 100% sure, but at least Mercedes was honest enough to come out and say that. I think we've not seen any other legal front wings making an appearance. I think their all ability should be pretty much new in the Spanish Grand Prix. Everything that I've learned and from our technical guy, Carlo Filicetti, has learned, I'll give him a little shout out as well, because, well, it does such a good job with all the technical stuff on that side of things for him. He's that much to anything I don't. So, yes, it's another one of those major talking points, isn't it? As we had with Monaco with the two-stop strategy, here we got this major talking point around the front wing. Is it going to shake things up? Is it going to be a game changer? What's it going to do to the pecking order? Or try again as it did in Monaco with a two-stop? I got
Is
a
it going to
feeling
make? Go on.
that much of a difference. Is it going to make? As you say, is it going to make that much of a difference? You borrow your phrase, it. I know you love saying time in, time out. Only time will.
Well, we can add to the questions surrounding Barcelona. Is it going to impact our predictions? So let's get on with them. And I'm going to start by saying the predictions for Gerard, who is representing the fans for the Spanish Grand Prix. And Gerard, apologies if I've pronounced your name wrong, has predicted that Lando Norris will continue his run and claim pole position. Lando Norris will claim the fastest lap, Ferrari the fastest pit stop, and that's in the results. Lando will win, Oscar Piastri second, Max third, and Fernando Alonso will finally end his unwanted, pointless streak and finish in 10th. Ian, you've already mentioned a couple of yours. Go on, you go.
I like that one. That was a good one from
I
Gerard.
like
Do
it.
we know
Yeah,
where
that's great.
Gerard is from, Nick? Because there could
I'm
be
not
many
sure.
Gerards listening to
There
the
are.
show thinking, that's good. But obviously,
I'm
that
not sure.
particular Gerard will recognise his predictions, hopefully, certainly.
Yes.
But next time, let's give them a shout out as to which country they're representing, maybe.
Okie
I mean,
dokie.
we know we've got good friends around the world. Thank you for everybody. Okay, my prediction. You know where I'm going. I'm going Max on pole. I'm going Max victory. And then, boy, it's hard to live beyond the two McLarens, isn't it, for this Grand Prix? I can't see Charles Leclerc and Ferrari being up there again as they were around Monaco, because we're going back to a circuit that's got high-speed corners, medium-speed corners, and yeah, I've got to go Lando. It's boring. I know. Sorry, folks, it's boring. And look, I can't swerve away from Ferrari fastest pit stop. In fairness, of my 50 points scored so far this season, I reckon it's been that one single prediction that has got me to the top so far. So I'm staying with Ferrari. They've been good to me, so I'm going to be good to them. Fastest lap. Let's go for. I'm going to go for a Max fastest as well.
Okay.
He's got the clean sweep this week then, and 10th position. I'm doing like Jim Fernando Alonso, though. A clean one, actually. I tell you what, Gerard, I'm gonna go with you, mate. I'm gonna go for that one as well. Why not?
Interesting. Right. Okay. I'm going to go for, I agree with you. I'm going to go Max pole, Max victory. I'm going to go Red Bull fastest pit stop. It's going to happen eventually, surely. You know, they can't be being dominant for so many years and still not have claimed the fastest pit stop. So Red Bull fastest pit stop. I'm going to go Oscar for fastest lap. And in top three, so yeah, Max first, Oscar second, Lando third. And in P10, I'm going to say Liam Lawson. Sam, bring us home, please.
Okay, so I was also thinking Max pole position, but for the sake of a little bit differential, to add a little bit of jeopardy in there for us, I'm going to go Lando
Because you're
Norris.
last.
Yeah, because I have to do something, right? I have to roll the dice at some point. I can't just vote in line with you guys because I'll bake in. Well, no, but if I'll bake in my 10-point deficit if I don't try something new. So I'll go with Lando. I think the top three in the race, Lando will win. Max will be second. Oscar will be third. Oscar will also get the fastest lap. Oscar, I don't know if you remember, had a bit of a bad weekend in Spain last year. So that's my extension of my logic there.
Okay.
Pit stop Ferrari, I can't go differential on everything. I have to, go where the obvious lies.
Hold on. P10. Who are you going to go for?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? It's Fernando. No, it's Yuki Tsunoda. I'm going Yuki Tsunoda yet again because I said I would, and I am a man of my word. So yes, and I believe that's everything. Paul,
you are a man of your
3.
word, with the exception of George Russell winning the title this season. So take that with a pinch of salt. I think.
I did say the word concede. To be fair,
can
you take back a concession?
No, awesome stuff. And of course, to those who are watching or listening to this podcast, please do let us know your own predictions for the Spanish Grand Prix in the comment section below on YouTube. This has been the latest episode of the Racing News 365 podcast from Sam, Ian, and I. We'll see you this weekend for the Spanish Grand Prix. See you later.
Thanks for joining us.